Senator Slom.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I stand in strong opposition to this bill.
Please proceed.
Thank you. During the past hour, we've heard many good comments, many good thoughts. And the curtain is coming down today on the drama that has been this political theater. Because, in fact, this was not a special session. It was totally scripted, totally politicized. The votes were extracted and taken before we ever met, or we wouldn't have met. As I said previously, on many occasions, there was no reason, no urgency for a special session devoted to sexual orientation. In the past 12 years, this state has had 2 special sessions unrelated to the Senate's advising and consenting to judicial or cabinet nominees. One had to do with the superferry and the economic implications. The other was called immediately after 9/11, when we were all concerned about what was going to be the future of our state and our nation. To say that the argument for sexual orientation rises to that level is absurd. To say that this is historic is untrue. Hysteric it may be. We should have decided it, if at all, during the regular session. Lord knows we've spent years and years on this topic. For those of you that have not heard me over the past 20 years, I've said very loudly and very clearly, the legislature and government should not be involved in marriage. You did not have to worry about separation of church and state, not in our legislature, because you didn't hear a prayer at the beginning of this session. You haven't heard a prayer in several years. Because, again, special interests who pushed the issue pushed us back. Are we truly the representatives of the people, of all the people? I think not. I heard mixed arguments this morning. One is that the tide of history has changed, that people have changed, and so we should listen to them. Except when it means giving them the right to let the people decide. Then we don't want to listen to them. Oh yeah, they're smart enough to vote for us or not vote at all. The public is smart enough to create a salary commission to give us all salary increases automatically. The people are smart enough to vote for a rail to nowhere, but they're not smart enough to vote on basic issues. And why don't legislators want the public to vote? Because the public will vote overwhelmingly in opposition to same-sex marriage. The other night, during our 12-hour hearing, we had between 6,000 and 8,000 people outside, even more if you looked around the corners and on the lawn and everywhere else. Many of those people did not get an opportunity to testify, even though they had signed up to do so. Other people who had signed up early did not get the opportunity to testify. And most of these people, if not all of them, were in opposition. The figures released of those that did get to testify showed that more than 60% were in opposition. And yet we do not want to let the people decide. And there's a real problem with that. Hawaii is the only state out of the 50, or 57 as our president insists, the only state that has neither statewide initiative, referendum, recall, or term limits. So what is the public to do? The public comes down here seeking an opportunity to testify and to participate, and they're denied that. And then they seek to talk to us, to talk about reason and rationality and law, and our minds had already been made up. And now we celebrate a momentous time in history. And individuals have gotten up and told about how they have evolved. They're very proud of their evolution. The governor evolved from his statements as a candidate in 2010. My colleagues in the Senate and in the House that are running for a higher office, they've evolved because they stick their finger up in the wind to see where the votes may be, where the activism may be. And in full disclosure, I married interracially. I have two beautiful interracial sons. I am not a Christian or a Catholic, yet religious. And yet I see a continuing attack and onslaught against Christians and Catholics and people of religion in this community and elsewhere. We were told 5 years ago that our president, his administration, and his followers were going to transform America, the one promise that has been kept. And those that accuse people like me of not evolving, not changing, not going along with the tide and the wave and all of that, stubbornly, steadfastly sticking to tradition and to the Constitution and to what is right. We're called all kinds of names. And we've been given threats as well. And by the way, let me say, there is no room for non-respect or lack of civility in this or any other discussion. And the fact that we've had it is sad. This issue, which should not be part of a legislative agenda, especially when we have an economy in shambles, people out of work, people who can't afford food or health care or proper education for their children. We heard about education, but we didn't hear about how we continue to rank low or lowest among the states in educational attainment. We have a terrible infrastructure. We have problems in health care. We have problems with the homeless, with Native Hawaiians and others. And yet we champion this cause, which is not about equal rights. It is about extending a privilege. The Loving case does not apply here. It involved a man and a woman. And while there were wrongs committed in our country and they were redressed, calling something equality and carving out a right does not necessarily make it so, no matter how loud the voices are, no matter how people champion it, like our media, which has been in the bag from the beginning, does not report news, special interest groups and political parties. By calling an elephant a donkey does not make it so. Marriage is marriage. It is separate. We can have disagreements on that. We can talk about equal rights in other areas. But we have become a nation and a state where people every day talk about their new rights that they have. And they misconstrue privilege for right. And they misconstrue entitlements for rights. Our rights are God-given, yet we are told now we can't even allow God in our house. At a time when lawmakers, particularly, as smart as we are, and you all know how smart we are, at a time when we have all of these problems, we are not even allowed to seek divine guidance. And yet we are listening to the voices who say, we represent change, we represent something new. At one point, we're told, listen to the majority. At another point, we're told, don't listen to the majority. Well, I know a little bit about that, being the only one here in the state Senate. This is not a partisan issue, or it should not be, and yet, interestingly, some of the activists pop up in the same issues against religion, against prayer, against a free enterprise capitalist American system, in fact, against America. And we have people that say that the Constitution of the United States is outmoded, that it should be changed, it should be ignored selectively. These people have not read and do not understand the Constitution of the United States or the state of Hawaii. We had a 12-hour hearing the other day. 3 years ago, we had an 18-hour nonstop continuous hearing that I was part of in the Senate. I encourage people to come forward. I encourage people to give their views and opinions. But you should understand that the legislature is not that all-wise and all-seeing. We all have our fallacies and our foibles. And for us to make decisions for a community that is so divided now, just like our nation, is not the best use of our time or our resources. And I have to say that in listening to everyone, yes, there were some intemperate remarks made. Yes, there was repetitive statements made. And yes, there were statements that really were not on point about this issue. Legal scholars, in fact, do differ about whether or not same-sex marriage should be allowed and should be taken under the tent of equal rights. They differ. And yet these views, as are my views, are told that we're out of step. And we're finding more and more in our country and in our legislative bodies that anybody that has a different view is not given that equality of speech. And that's where this bill fails. This bill is an attack on religious freedom and the First Amendment. Make no mistake about it. The so-called protections in this bill, as written now, will not protect religious organizations and their facilities. This bill gives additional legal causes of action, and people will use them. They will continue to sue. Years ago, we were told, if you just pass reciprocal beneficiaries, then everything will be fine. And then we were told if you just pass civil unions, everything would be fine. And yet, honestly, those people who have advocated on the front lines for same-sex marriage have always done so, and that's their right and their privilege. But they haven't been honest and open about it. And are there problems with reciprocal beneficiaries, domestic partners, and civil unions? Yes, there are. And I've said over and over again, in those areas that deny people the right to take care of one another, or to visit in the hospital, or to have power of attorney, those parts of the law that do not meet those standards, then change them. We can do that. That's something that the legislature could do. That's something that the Congress can do. But there was a lot of misinformation the other day, including, with all due respect, our former Supreme Court Justice, Mr. Levinson. First of all, the DOMA law, the Defense of Marriage Act, was not struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court. A section was, and it applied primarily to California and New York. The Supreme Court has not ruled that same-sex marriage is both an equal right and deserved. And Mr. Levinson talked about Iowa, and he was incorrect because in Iowa, the state Supreme Court struck down the same-sex marriage provision, and 3 of the justices who supported it were removed by the Iowa residents. Of course, we don't allow election of judges either in the state of Hawaii. Maybe we should revisit that too, Madam President. Because for those people that didn't like the plantation system in Hawaii, you're sitting in the new plantation right here. We tell you what to think, we tell you what to wear, we tell you who to hire, we tell you how much to pay, we tell you that you must have insurance, we tell you all these things. We are the plantation here. We have more monopolies in this state than anywhere else. We have more unholy alliances between businesses and government than any other state. And then we wonder why our people are struggling. And there are a lot of people that have been afraid in this debate to speak out, and that's a shame. But they are, for one reason or another. And I fully expect in the next few days you're going to hear comments from the Native Hawaiian community about how devastating this law would be to them. And they'll be more specific about it. But all those people that have been cheerleading, letting us believe everybody's in favor of this, it's only those few people that are political misanthropes or social laggards, as was described in a publication the other day. It's only us that are opposed to this. Let the people vote. Let the people decide. Let's find out. But we're not going to do that because everything here has been neatly done. And that's a shame. And that is not democracy. And that reflects poorly upon everyone, gay and straight, Republican and Democrat. We have problems in this state, and we have not addressed them. We have so much talent here, and it doesn't matter about your political party or your sexual orientation. But when we try to force people to do certain things that they don't want to do, that is not positive. This bill will not advance life, liberty, or happiness in this state. This bill will not improve our economic conditions. Oh, yes, I know. I know there have been studies saying if we just do this, wow, we'll have more people, more gay and lesbians coming to Hawaii to enjoy our state and spend money. But there'll be other people that will be concerned about that lifestyle and concerned about our image. At last count, 14 states, in fact, have legalized some sort of same-sex marriage, which leaves, in my public school math, 36 states that have not. We talk all the time about trying to better the lives of people. If we worked on our economy, if we worked on making Hawaii a better place, then in fact all people, regardless of their religious outlook, regardless of their sexual orientation, is going to benefit. And that's what we're here for. And you have to hold our feet to the fire, not just on a single issue, but on what we're doing for the state. We are all public servants. We all are beholden to you. You pay for everything we do. But you've got to be more involved. You've got to be more engaged. And don't let me hear any of you say your vote doesn't matter. You don't matter. Your vote in this issue matters. Your vote in every issue matters. So I appeal to my colleagues that before they uncork the bottles of champagne, that they be fully concerned about what this measure and others like it do in our community. We should be working to bring people together. We should be working to help those people who need help. This is not the case. And we've learned over the years, and particularly over the last couple of days, that this issue is not about love, it's not about compassion, it's not about equal rights, it's about money, it's about tax benefits, it's about federal benefits. And even the Attorney General, in his very unique way of answering questions, had to admit that if you want to go to another state, as many people do on a regular basis, including to get married, you will not lose those benefits. You will gain those benefits. But you know what it tells me? It tells me that what I've been fighting for the 18 years I've been here, that our taxes are too high, our government regulations too unfair, the fees and everything that are eating you alive. That's what we should be doing. That's what we should be together on a bipartisan basis. So I'll leave you with this thought. Passing a law like this is not going to solve our problems, is not going to make divisions go away. But it will get people concerned who have been disenfranchised and who realize that their government is going in a different direction from them. It's not bad to disagree on any issue. And it certainly is not bad to stick up for your beliefs and your rights and your freedom of speech. I believe that this bill will be compromised, and I will continue to oppose it. Thank you.
For the